Paranormal M unlocks the secrets of the supernatural. From cursed relics to haunted places, we explore them all. Subscribe now. The shadows won't wait. Okay, so I've got to tell you this thing that happened. And I swear, I know how crazy it sounds, but it's been stuck in my head for weeks. So, my name's Lena, and this happened about a month ago. My friend Marco and I were spending the weekend in a city we barely know. Like, we've been there once or twice, but we're basically tourists. It was a Saturday evening, super crowded, people everywhere, street performers, traffic noise, all that. We're just walking, talking nonsense, doing that slow, aimless stroll you do when you've got nowhere to be. We must have walked past hundreds of people, maybe more. Just faces, faces, faces. And then we passed this little corner cafe, the ones with those tiny round tables outside. Fairy lights, plants in pots that are a little too dry. Most of the tables are full of people facing each other, chatting, drinking wine, looking at their phones. But at one table, there's this woman. She's sitting alone at table 7. I know that because the number was printed on this little metal stand in front of her. And unlike everyone else, she's not turned toward her drink or her phone or whoever she's with. She's sitting straight, facing the street, facing us, like she's waiting. And I swear, the second our eyes met, everything just went weird. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and everyone stops talking? It was like that, but in reverse. The street was still loud. People were still walking. But for a second, it felt like someone hit mute on the whole city. It was just her and us, and this pressure in the air. She didn't look scary or anything. Dark hair in this messy bun, green eyes, simple black dress, a red coat over the back of her chair. Honestly, she was really pretty. She had this tiny, polite smile on her face. Not friendly, not creepy. Just like she'd been expecting us, and we were right on time. And my whole body just went, nope. I glance at Marco, and he has the exact same look I'm pretty sure I have. We walk past her, don't say anything, but a few steps later we both stop at the same time. We turn to each other like, did you feel that? And he's like, okay, I thought I was going insane. We couldn't explain what was wrong. She looked completely normal, but it felt like she didn't belong there. Like someone cut her out of one photo and pasted her into another one with bad Photoshop. The more I think about it, the more it feels like she wasn't real. I know how that sounds, but that's the closest I can get. So, obviously, because we're uncomfortable, we start joking about it. That's our coping mechanism. If we're scared, we turn it into comedy. We keep walking, and Marco goes, Madam Table 7 has foreseen your destiny, and starts doing this fake fortune teller voice. I play along, like, oh yes, she knows I'm gonna lose my keys and trip over a dog and spill coffee on myself today. We're laughing, making up stupid predictions. Stuff like, before tonight is over, we'll see a guy in a yellow suit. Somebody's going to drop a whole cake. You'll hear your name from a complete stranger. Just random, weird things. Because why not, right? And then they start happening. We turn into this side street with a tiny park, and there's a wedding shoot going on. The groom? He's in this absolutely ridiculous bright yellow suit. Not mustard, not beige, cartoon yellow. Marco and I just freeze and stare at each other. We try to brush it off, like, okay, coincidences happen, whatever. Then we pass a bakery. Right as we're going by, this teenage kid walks out, trips on the curb, and drops an entire cake. Like full-on, decorated, birthday-level cake. It explodes on the sidewalk. People are gasping, the kid's swearing, the staff runs out. Marco just looks at me like, "You're kidding me." And I'm like, "No. Nope, not doing this." Now we're both nervous laughing, but it's that shaky laughter where you're actually freaked out. We kind of stop playing the prediction game after that, because it doesn't feel funny anymore. Then the third thing happens. We're waiting at a crosswalk. The little red man is still red. Cars are going by, and there's this group behind us chatting. Out of nowhere, someone behind me says my name. Clear as day, exact pronunciation. Not a nickname, not some common word that sounds like it. My name. I turn around instantly. I'm expecting someone I know, right? But it's just 3 tourists talking in another language. Nobody is looking at me. No one's made eye contact. They just keep chatting like nothing happened. Marco didn't hear it, but I know what I heard. And it felt exactly like when she looked at us. At that point, I'm done. I tell him I want to go back to the hotel. We get takeout, put on a movie, try to forget it. By the next day, we've sort of pushed it down into that box in your brain labeled, "Weird stuff, do not open." But here's the thing. It didn't go away. For the whole week after that, I felt off. Little things kept going wrong in ways that felt connected, even if logically I know they probably weren't. My phone glitched. Important emails vanished and then reappeared. I kept waking up at the same random time in the night, like my brain was on alert. Marco and I didn't bring her up at all. We kind of silently agreed not to. Then, one night, I text him like, "Okay, I need to talk about the woman at table 7. And he replies, "Thank you. I thought I was crazy." So we get on a call and talk everything through. The eye contact. The weird glow she kind of had. Those messed up predictions coming true. And because neither of us knows anything about spirituality or the occult or whatever, we decide to post about it online. Not like, "OMG, witch help," but more like, "Hey, this weird thing happened. Is there a name for this? Is it just anxiety? Sleep deprivation? Something?" Most people don't say much. A couple of, "Sounds creepy, LOL." A few, probably just coincidences. But one person replies with this super serious tone, right? They send us this short phrase in some forbidden language, according to them. They're like, "If you see her again, say this out loud. She will have to obey you." And even though we don't believe it, that message just hits wrong. Like, I don't want to mess with something I don't understand. Even if it's probably some edgy teenager making stuff up. But curiosity wins, so I copy the phrase and paste it into a search engine. I just want to see if it's from a movie or some creepypasta or something. Except, nothing normal comes up. The first result is one of those auto-generated AI overviews, where it tries to explain what you meant. It clearly thinks I'm searching for something else entirely. And that would be fine, except the summary starts with about 10 words, and my full legal name is just there, in the first line. Not my username, not my nickname, not a common name. My exact full name, spelled correctly, in the first sentence of a paragraph that has nothing to do with what I typed. I just stare at the screen, and my stomach drops. Like that feeling when you miss a step on the stairs. I refresh the page. It's still there. I show Marco. He goes quiet. And that's when it stops being funny at all. Since then, it's like my brain has been stuck in this loop. Was she something else? Did we accidentally step into someone's story that wasn't ours? Or are we just building a whole horror movie in our heads out of coincidences and bugs and algorithms being weird? Part of me keeps thinking, you're overreacting. The human brain is amazing at finding patterns. You saw a pretty woman with intense eye contact, then you made some dumb jokes, then random stuff happened. End of story. But another part of me can't shake that moment on the street. The way everyone else felt like background characters, and she was the only one in focus. The way it felt like we were the ones being watched. And I don't know. I'm not here to convince anyone it was supernatural or cursed or anything like that. I honestly hope it wasn't. I just needed to say it out loud, you know? To get it out of my head and into words. So yeah, that's the story of the woman at table 7. If it's all just coincidence, then fine, I'll take that. But if it's not, I really hope I never see her again. A couple of months ago, my wife Lena and I were dog sitting for our friend Maya. She's got this tiny, overconfident beagle named Biscuit. Biscuit eats this fancy wet food that comes in these flat pouches. Bright teal, huge logo, little cartoon carrots on the front. You could spot them from across the street, easily. Maya drops Biscuit off with his little overnight bag and 4 food pouches. 4. I remember counting them. We line them up on the counter, next to the toaster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Biscuit stays the weekend, eats 3. 1 pouch left. When it's time to take him home, I go to grab that last pouch so I can send it back with him. And it's gone. Not the Heinz something. Not must have slipped under the mail. Just not there. I check the whole counter. I check the trash. I check the pantry in case I got ambitious and put it away without thinking. Nothing. Lena swears she didn't move it. I definitely didn't move it. Our own 2 dogs, Jasper and Noodle, are big enough that if they'd gotten onto the counter, there would have been shredded pouch confetti and no question what happened. But there's nothing. No mess. No pouch. Just 3 empty teal rectangles in the trash. And a missing 4th. We shrug it off. Maya buys those things by the case, so I take Biscuit home, apologize, and we move on with our lives. Fast forward about a week. I'm in the kitchen making coffee, half awake, and there, sitting right on the counter between the stove and the knife block, a spot we walk past 50 times a day. is that teal dog food pouch. Same brand, same Best By date, same little cartoon carrots smiling at me. Just there. Not under anything, not behind anything, not in a weird corner, not in some oh duh place. Dead center, in plain sight. Like it had been placed there for maximum "are you kidding me" effect. The thing is, Lena and I both remember keeping all the pouches on the other side of the stove, near the coffee maker and the microwave. That's where I'd been opening them and scooping them into Biscuit's bowl. That's where we had lined them up. And yet, now it's chilling in the middle, like it teleported in to say hi. We laugh it off. You know, we're getting older, ha ha, brains are mush, that kind of thing. We make some jokes about poltergeists with opinions about dog food. Life goes on. Then the tuna incident happens. So I'm in the mood for tuna salad. Very glamorous, I know. This requires two special tools. Our old manual can opener and this little plastic disc with holes in it. Kind of like a tiny colander. You press into the can to drain it. I have no idea what it's actually called. I just call it the holy drainy thing. Both of these have lived in the same drawer to the right of the stove since forever. Literally decades. The can opener has been there since before I moved in. The drawer could have its own mailing address. I open the drawer. No can opener. No holy drainy thing. Now, this drawer is not some chaotic junk vortex. It's the real utensils only drawer. Spatulas, whisks, tongs, that kind of thing. I pull everything out. I check the back. I check under the drawer, because sometimes stuff flips and falls. I check the dishwasher. I check the sink. I even check the cutlery drawer, because once in a while we get lazy and just toss things in random places. Nothing. It is as if the can opener and the drainy thing just clocked out and left. I end up opening the tuna with a little can opener on my Swiss Army knife, which I have not used for actual camping in a while. I drain it by squeezing the lid down like a college student who just moved out for the first time. I tell Lena later, "Hey, have you seen the can opener?" She says no. I ask about the white plastic drain thing. She looks at me like I'm making it up. The what? I mime pressing it into a can. She goes, "Oh yeah, that." No, haven't seen it. We both look around. We don't find either. About a week later, I'm getting something from one of the deep storage drawers across the kitchen. You know the kind of drawer I mean. The third tier one. It's got the stuff you use maybe twice a year. Skewers, giant serving spoons, one lonely pastry brush. Things that only come out for holidays and when you think, let's try making fondue once every 5 years. I slide that drawer open and there, right on top of the bamboo skewers, is the can opener. Like it lives there. We almost never open that drawer. There is absolutely no reason either of us would have put the can opener in there. It's not like we had a fondue emergency and switched drawers in a panic. I bring it to Lena and go, "You did this, right?" And she just laughs because she thought I was the one who had moved it. We still have no idea how it got there. As for the holy drainy thing, still missing. We keep washing dishes, running the dishwasher, loading and unloading. I check the drawer where it's supposed to live every time I make anything with a can. I check the dish rack, the sink, the drying mat. Nothing. Then one afternoon, I'm putting away dishes and I look over at the dish drainer, and there it is. Just sitting there, on top of a plate. Bright white. Impossible to miss against the dark metal rack. Not tucked under anything. Not wedged somewhere. Right up front. Like it had been there the whole time. Except it hadn't. Because we'd done multiple rounds of dishes since it went missing. I had specifically checked the dish rack. I had checked the dish pan. I had checked the sink. I was hunting for that thing. It wasn't there. And then suddenly, it is. Now at this point, we've got one teleporting dog food pouch, one can opener that took a vacation to the we never open this drawer, and one holy drainy thing that disappeared for days and reappeared exactly where I had checked for it over and over. We're joking about having a helpful but confused ghost, right? Like, thanks for doing the dishes, but why are you putting my tools in the wrong drawer? And then the slipper goes missing. This one's Lena's. Weather starts getting colder, so she pulls out her favorite fuzzy slippers. They're these thick gray ones with memory foam. She wears them every night, takes them off when she's in her recliner in the living room. One evening, she goes to put them on and only one slipper. Now, we have dogs. We know the drill. Jasper and Noodle love stealing shoes, so we assume they grabbed it and dumped it somewhere. I start the standard shoe hunt. Behind the couch, under the dining room table, under the bed, in the hallway, in the dogs' beds. Nothing. The most obvious place to check is under Lena's recliner, because that's where she actually takes them off. It's one of those lift recliners, so when it's up, you can see pretty clearly under the whole thing, just a metal frame and empty floor. I flip the recliner up. I get down with my phone flashlight. I scan the whole area. Nothing. No slipper, no sock, no dog toy. Just dust bunnies and a pen we lost last year. I think, all right, maybe the dogs carried it somewhere weird. So I get serious about it. I grab my super bright LED clip-on light, the kind you stick on a hard hat, and I go full search and rescue mode on the entire upstairs, under beds, in closets, behind dressers, under the desk, behind the laundry hampers. I'm crawling around like I'm doing a home inspection. No slipper. And remember, the dogs aren't allowed downstairs to the finished basement. Doors stay closed. So it has to be somewhere upstairs. But it just isn't. Days go by. Lena wears socks instead, grumbling about her ghost slipper. Then one night, she's sitting in her recliner and she goes, Sam? I come in. She's pointing under the chair. I lift the recliner up, and there it is. The missing slipper is lying neatly under the recliner, not half stuck out, not caught in some mechanism, just gently parked in the middle of the floor under the chair, in the exact spot I had checked before, with a bright light. Twice. Could the dogs have hidden it somewhere, gotten bored with it, and then later carried it back and dropped it under the chair? Sure, that's technically possible. But if they did, they managed to do it without us seeing them, without leaving tooth marks, and somehow chose to drop it right in the one place I had already searched like a crime scene. Now, before you ask, No, we don't have roommates. We don't have kids. We have a Ring doorbell. We lock our doors at night and when we're out. We've got 2 big dogs who go nuts if a leaf even thinks about blowing past our front step. Also, and this is important, we did a massive declutter this year. Like full house, multiple runs to donation centers declutter. The house has never been this organized. If something is out of place, it's obvious, and yet, these things keep moving, disappearing, reappearing, always in some place that's either very wrong for them or very obviously visible in a way that says, "You should have seen me here, but you didn't." I don't have a big theory for you. I'm not going to tell you a demon did it, or we live on top of a portal, or time slips are real. Honestly, the most unsettling part of all this is how small it is. It's just normal life, but slightly off. And that's kind of why I'm sharing it with you. Because I have a feeling, I really do, that you have your own version of this. That one sock that showed up in a drawer you swear you never opened. The keys that were allegedly on the counter you looked at 3 times. The book that reappeared on the shelf you'd already scanned. So if you're listening to this while you're washing dishes, or making dinner, or hunting for your own missing can opener, and you feel like the universe is moving your stuff around just to mess with you? Yeah, same. You're not alone. My grandmother, well, my Nana Rose, passed away earlier this year. We were close. After she passed, I ended up with some of her old things. A couple of her antiques, some framed photos, and a laptop that used to belong to one of her best friends, a guy named Mr. Harris, who also passed a while back. So the house is kind of full of memories, you know? Full of other people's energy. Anyway, that's the backdrop. Now here's where it gets weird. So I live with my partner, Mark, and our 2 cats. One of them, Luna, is obsessed, like truly obsessed, with water. If she could marry the bathroom sink, she would. We have to keep the bathroom door closed all the time because she'll drink out of the toilet, and we keep those bleach tablets in there. So keeping that door shut is like rule number 1 in this house. I am religious about it. I close it every single time. One night, Mark had already gone upstairs to crash. I was downstairs. I went into the bathroom, did my thing, shut the door behind me like I always do, and then stepped out onto the back porch to smoke and watch some videos on my phone. I don't smoke inside, so this is my little nightly ritual. Just me, the night air, and some random YouTube rabbit hole. I'm out there maybe, 20, 25 minutes. Long enough that my cigarette's done, the video's over, and my brain's starting to feel a little sleepy. I come back in, head toward the bathroom again, and the door is open. Not wide open, just cracked. Like someone used it after me and didn't close it. And immediately my whole body just chills. Tiny goosebumps everywhere. Because I know I closed that door. I remember the sound of the latch. That's how automatic it is for me. Now, Mark is not as good about it. He'll forget and leave it half shut sometimes. But he was already upstairs, knocked out. There was no one else in the house. And the door was just sitting there, slightly open, like it wanted me to notice. I tell myself, okay, old house. Maybe it's the air. Maybe it didn't catch right. I shut it again, kind of firmly this time, and try to shake it off. A couple days later, I'm sleeping over at my friend Ellie's place. Mark's home alone. Later, he tells me that he was sitting on the couch, scrolling through YouTube trying to find something to watch. The house was totally quiet, and then he hears it. The bathroom door. That same door, downstairs, slowly creaking open. He said it wasn't like a random noise in the distance. It was the specific sound of that door. Hinges, latch, everything. And he knew he hadn't touched it. He knew he'd left it shut. He told me about it the next night after I got home. We were in bed, lights off, just talking before we fell asleep. When he mentioned the door, I felt those same goosebumps rise up again. That little electric feeling on your arms that says, you are not alone right now. And then I told him about my door moment. We just kind of lay there in the dark like, okay, that's odd. Now fast forward to another night. My dad, Dave, stopped by to bring me a laptop I needed for work. He's the type who doesn't really believe in anything paranormal, so it's funny that he's even part of this story. I wanted to show him how ridiculous Luna gets when she plays, so I grabbed her favorite toy. It's one of those long plastic wands with a bunch of strings and a little stuffed bird at the end with tiny bells. She absolutely loses her mind over this thing, running, jumping, twisting, even when I just prop it up and walk away. I pull it out of this drawer in the living room. We all laugh, watching her sprint around like she's in the Olympics. And then Mark looks at me and goes, Okay, can you put that away now? She's driving me nuts, so I'm like, fair enough. I put the wand back in the drawer. I remember closing the drawer. End of story. Toys put away. Later that night, Mark and I are in bed upstairs, lights off. We're in that half-asleep place where your body is heavy, but your brain's still barely hanging on. And then we hear it. The sound of something being batted around downstairs. The unmistakable noise of cat chaos. Little thumps, a faint jingle, that plasticky tapping sound. At first I'm like, okay, they found a bottle cap or something. But it keeps going. So I lean over the railing at the top of the stairs to peek down. And there she is. Luna is on the floor with that same exact wand toy, strings and little bird and all, just going to town on it. Like I never put it away at all. My stomach just drops because I know I put that toy back in the drawer. I remember the action of tucking it in, closing it, moving on. I hadn't opened that drawer since my dad left. Mark hadn't either. He doesn't touch their toys unless he's stepping on one. So how did it get out? Did the drawer not close all the way? Sure, that's possible. But even if it didn't, Luna would have had to grab that one specific toy, drag it out, and somehow close the drawer again enough that it looked shut. And the thing is, the drawer was closed when I checked it later. So now we have the bathroom door opening on its own. The bathroom door doing it again when I'm not even home. A cat toy somehow making its way out of a closed drawer. And that's not even everything. There was another night where I walked into the house and it smelled like sage. That soft, smoky herbal smell. The thing is, I've only used sage once in my life, and it wasn't even in this house. It was at my mom's old trailer, right after Nana Rose passed. We did a little cleansing thing, just the two of us, because it felt right. I don't own any sage here. I haven't burned anything like that in this house. But that night, I stepped through the front door, took a breath, and my first thought was, Nana. It was so familiar it kind of stopped me in my tracks. So now I'm stuck in this space where I'm asking myself, is this my grandmother? Is she just hanging around, playing with the cats? opening the door, letting me know she's here in little ways? Or is it something else? Something that just happens to be attached to the antiques, or the old laptop from Mr. Harris, or just the house itself. I don't feel like I'm in danger exactly. It's more like I'm being watched. Not constantly, just in these little moments that catch me off guard. The open door, the toy on the floor, the smell of sage that should not be there. And honestly, there are times I wonder if I'm just losing it. Like, did I really close that door? Did I really shut that drawer? Is my brain just filling in gaps because I miss my Nana and I've got all of her things around me now? But then I think about how clearly I remember some of those moments. The sound of the bathroom latch, the feeling of pushing that drawer closed, Mark hearing the door when I wasn't even home. And it all lines up just enough to make me doubt my own rational explanation voice. So, that's where I'm at. Living in this maybe haunted house, with a bathroom door that doesn't like to stay shut, a cat toy that apparently teleports, and a random smell of sage that reminds me of the only time I ever tried to say goodbye to my grandmother's spirit. I don't know if it's her. I don't know if it's something else. I don't even know if I want to know. But if you've had something like this happen, little things moving, doors opening, smells that come out of nowhere, just know you're not the only one lying awake at night, listening for the sound of a door you know you closed. Thanks for listening to me ramble about my weird little haunted life. It actually feels kind of good to say it out loud. Wherever you are, whatever's creaking in your house tonight, I hope you feel safe, and I hope you feel held. I want to tell you about something that happened last night, because honestly, I still feel weird even saying it out loud. So it's me, my husband, let's call him Leo, and our 6-month-old daughter, Rosie. We're staying at his aunt's lakeside cabin, Cabin 7. It's old, creaky, kind of charming in the daytime, and a little too true crime podcast at night. We get the guest room upstairs. It's long and narrow with 2 beds. One tiny twin pushed against the wall, and one big old queen in the far corner under the window. There's only enough space next to the twin for Rosie's travel crib, so the sleeping arrangement is, I'm in the little bed next to the crib, and Leo gets the big bed across the room. That detail matters. So last night, around 9:30, I lay Rosie down in her little travel crib right next to my bed. I do the usual routine. Sleep sack, kiss on the forehead, soft shushing, and she goes down pretty easily. The room's dark, except for this little orange nightlight that makes everything look, I don't know, kind of sepia, like an old photograph. Once she's out, I crawl into my tiny bed. Leo's already in the big bed, scrolling his phone. After a few minutes, I decide I'm not tired yet and I want to cuddle. So I get up and climb into his bed instead. Here's the important part. I leave my phone over on the twin bed, on the far side of the room, right next to Rosie's crib, screen down. Volume up because I use it as my alarm. I always have an alarm set for 10 p.m. to remind me to take my birth control. It has the same Apple alarm sound every night. This calm, kind of cheesy chime. You probably know the one. So Leo and I are curled up, whispering, trying not to wake her. The cabin is super quiet. You know how, at night in the country, you can actually hear the silence? maybe a fridge hum, a little lake wind, but that's it. Then, at 10 p.m. on the dot, my alarm goes off. Except, it's not my alarm. At first I recognize the tune. It's that same chime, but louder somehow. Like someone turned the volume way up, and then, layered over the sound, there's this voice. A woman's voice. Soft. Slow. Almost like she's right next to the phone, singing into it, and she's repeating, over and over, my baby, my baby, my baby. I freeze. Leo freezes. We're both staring into the dark across the room, where my phone and my child are. Leo whispers, "What the hell kind of ringtone is that?" And I say, "That's not my ringtone. That's not anything I have." The voice keeps going, following the rhythm of the alarm, like a lullaby that's trying to match a metronome. My baby. My baby. My baby. And the way she says it, there's no sweetness. It's not affectionate. It's almost possessive, like she's claiming something or someone. My whole body just goes cold. Every hair on my arm stands up, and I get this horrible feeling. I don't even know how to explain it, except that it felt like someone was standing over that little crib. I whisper, "Leo, go turn it off. Please, please." He doesn't move. He just keeps staring, like he's rooted to the bed, and then he mutters, "Nope, absolutely not." So I do it. I throw the blanket off and bolt across the room, and as I'm running over, the voice is still singing, "My baby, my baby." I slam my hand down on the screen to stop the alarm. It goes silent, and the silence after is almost worse. Rosie is still asleep, completely out, chest rising and falling, one little fist up by her cheek. She didn't even stir. I grab her. I don't even think about it. I just scoop her up out of the crib and hold her against me. Then I flip on the overhead light. The room lights up, and suddenly it's just a normal cabin bedroom. Beige curtains, wood paneling, old dresser. No mysterious woman standing by the crib. No one in the corner. But I cannot shake the feeling that there was someone, that I'd just missed her. Leo finally gets up and comes over. He looks at my phone like it's about to bite him. I open the alarm settings, hands shaking, and it just says, 10 p.m., repeat daily, default chime. No custom sound, no playlist, nothing. I check my recently played audio, nothing there either. I just keep saying, who was singing to our baby? Who was that? And Leo's like, it's gotta be a glitch. Maybe a weird ad or some audio bug. Phones are weird. But I know my phone. I know my alarms. I've had that same chime for months. And this wasn't like an ad cutting in. It was perfectly timed, perfectly layered, like it was part of the alarm. I can still hear it in my head, even now, retelling this to you. My baby. My baby. My baby. I ask him, did you change my alarm? Are you messing with me? And he swears up and down, swears on our daughter's life that he didn't touch my phone. He looks genuinely shaken, which is almost more scary, because Leo is the logical one. He's the, there's always an explanation guy. That night, I refuse to sleep across the room. I shove over and make him climb into the tiny twin with me and Rosie. The three of us are squished together like sardines. Every time I start to drift off, I jolt awake because I hear it again in my head. My baby. I check Rosie constantly. Is she breathing? Is she okay? Is she cold? Did anything change? Nothing. She's fine. Peaceful, even. While I'm panicking, she's having the best sleep of her life. Morning comes. Sunlight through those beige curtains. Everything feels less dramatic, the way it always does in daylight. Leo makes coffee, shrugs it off. Phone's glitch, babe. It was creepy, sure, but it's just tech being weird. And I wish I could believe that. I really do. But here's what sticks with me, and I want you to think about this with me for a second. If it was a random audio glitch, some stray bit of code or a half-loaded ad or something, why that phrase? Why my baby? Not hello, not some song lyric, not garbled noise. A clear, calm woman's voice, singing about a baby, at the exact moment my alarm goes off, while my actual baby is lying alone in the dark on that bed. I even tried to recreate it later. I went through every sound on my phone. I Googled like a maniac. Daybreak alarm with singing voice. iPhone alarm creepy woman voice. All of it. Nothing. It's like whatever we heard last night doesn't exist anywhere else. So now I'm sitting here, recording this, in that same cabin, in the daylight, telling you I don't have a neat conclusion. I don't have a rational, oh, and then we figured it out, haha, silly us, ending. All I have is that song echoing in my head, and that feeling that someone, somewhere in this house, or tied to it, or maybe just passing through, wanted to stand over my daughter and claim her, even for a moment. My baby, my baby, my baby. I don't know if it was a glitch. I don't know if it was something else. What I do know is, tonight, I'm sleeping with my phone off, my baby in my arms, and every light in this room on. And if you ever hear your alarm play a song you've never heard before, especially one that knows a little too much about you, I just hope you're not across the room from the person you love most when it starts to sing. You know, every now and then, you come across a story that just refuses to fit neatly into any box. Tonight, I want to tell you about one of those stories. Let's call her Lena Hart, and we're going back to 1993, to a neurosurgery suite where everything was supposed to be controlled, measured, and explainable. So here's the setup. Lena is on the operating table for a high-risk brain procedure. The whole plan is to cool her body way down, drain the blood from her head for a while, and work on an aneurysm that could kill her if it ever burst. This is not a quick appendectomy. This is one of those every second counts, every beep on the monitor matters kinds of surgeries. Now, during a key part of this operation, Lena's brain activity drops into what's called electrocerebral silence. On the EEG, the brainwave monitor, she's basically a flat line. No measurable brainwaves. In that state, as far as we understand it, the brain isn't doing the kind of complex processing that lets you form memories, dream, or hallucinate. And on top of that, the team has gone out of their way to block her normal senses. Her eyes are taped shut. Her ears are plugged with little speakers that are pumping loud, repetitive clicks, around 100 decibels, straight into her ear canals. Those clicks are there to monitor her brain's responses. They're not there so she can hear the conversation in the room. If anything, they're drowning everything else out. So even if, by some miracle, she were fully awake and aware, which she was not supposed to be, Lena wouldn't have been able to see anything. And she wouldn't really be able to hear in any normal sense either. The usual channels of information, sight and hearing, are essentially locked down. Now, later on, when Lena talks about what happened, she describes things that, on the face of it, she shouldn't have had access to. She talks about the surgical tools, not in some vague, "oh, they probably used a scalpel and some clamps" way, but in a very specific way, describing one that looked more like a kind of electric toothbrush than a knife. She mentions the sound it made, the shape of it, and even repeats little bits of conversation between staff before the surgery reached its most critical point. Here's where the skeptics usually jump in and say, well, that's probably anesthesia awareness. So let's talk about that for a second. Anesthesia awareness is real. It's when someone is supposed to be fully out, but part of their brain is still actually registering what's going on. They might hear voices, feel pressure, or even pain. And it can be really traumatic. But here's the thing. Anesthesia awareness doesn't give you superpowers. It doesn't let you see through tape. It doesn't let you hear clearly through foam earplugs blasting clinical clicks into your ears. It definitely doesn't override the fact that your brain, at that point, isn't showing any electrical activity that would support complex, structured perception and memory. And even if we say, okay, imagine she did wake up a bit, there's still a problem. A lot of what Lena later describes takes place outside where her eyes would naturally point. Think about how you'd be positioned on the table. Drapes over your face, equipment around you, people moving behind your head. Some of the things she talks about, the angle of the incision, where certain instruments were placed, weren't even in what would have been her field of view. So awareness alone doesn't really fix this. And hallucinations or dreams don't help much either, because again, her brain is in this artificially silent, shut down state. It's like trying to get a detailed movie to play on a TV that isn't even turned on. If you want hallucinations to explain the story, you have to say, okay, her brain not only somehow produced vivid imagery out of nowhere, but those images lined up with very specific details of the procedure that she could not have seen or heard ahead of time. That's not just a lucky guess. That's a level of accuracy people don't usually get, even when they're wide awake and watching attentively. So if anesthesia awareness doesn't quite do it, and hallucinations don't quite do it, what's left? Well, one possibility people quietly slide onto the table is, maybe they all made it up. Lena, the surgeon, the nurses, everybody in the room somehow decided to collaborate on this weird little story. But then you start asking, why? Her surgeon, let's call him Dr. Kato, was already a respected name in his field. He didn't need a quirky, near-death story to boost his career. In fact, going out and saying, yeah, my patient had some kind of supernatural experience while her brain was offline, would probably harm his reputation, not help it. That's not the kind of quote that plays well in medical journals. And the funny part? He never does call it supernatural. He doesn't go on stage and declare, "This proves the afterlife." What he says, when he's pressed about it, is basically, "I don't have an explanation." She was in a state where, from everything we know, she shouldn't have been able to access that information, and that information wasn't available to her by normal means. That's it. No book tour, no giant documentary deal, no Dr. Cato's Guide to the Other Side merchant stall. Lena doesn't become some mega celebrity either. She tells her story, sure, but it's not like having a strange experience during brain surgery automatically turns you into a billionaire. There's no obvious fame or fortune at the end of this. If this was a conspiracy, it's honestly a pretty terrible one, because nobody really cashes in. And that's what sticks with me. Because when I talk to hardcore skeptics about cases like this, people who are absolutely convinced everything must have a neat, physical explanation, they almost always go back to the same two things: anesthesia awareness or hallucinations. And look, I get it. Those explanations feel safe. They let us keep the world in a comfortable box. But in this situation, with these surgical conditions, those explanations start to fall apart. You've got a brain that's electrically quiet. You've got eyes taped shut. You've got ears stuffed and flooded with loud clicks. You've got details described that shouldn't have been in view anyway. At a certain point, if we're being honest, we have to admit, the usual explanations just don't fit well here. Now, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not saying, "This proves there's life after death," or "Consciousness floats around the operating room." What I am saying is, stories like Lena's are really hard to wave away if we're playing fair with the facts we're given. And it's okay to sit in that space of, "I don't know." It's okay to say, "Yeah, that bothers me. That doesn't line up with the way I expect the world to work." For me, the frustrating part isn't skepticism itself. Healthy skepticism is good. It keeps us from believing every wild thing we hear. The frustrating part is when people refuse to update their position even a little when they bump into something that clearly doesn't fit their favorite explanation. Because in this case, if we take the conditions of the surgery seriously, if we take the monitoring seriously, if we take the medical team at their word, then it was just anesthesia awareness, or it was just a hallucination. Stop being real answers and start sounding more like ways to avoid the discomfort of mystery. So as you're listening to this, wherever you are, on a walk, in your car, lying in bed in the dark, I just want to invite you to sit with that mystery for a moment. A woman on a table, a silent brain, taped shut eyes, plugged ears, and yet, somehow, detailed, accurate memories of what happened around her. You don't have to decide tonight what that means. But maybe, just maybe, you can leave a little room in your worldview for the possibility that we don't understand consciousness as well as we think we do. And honestly, I think that's kind of beautiful. For context, I am not a big believer in paranormal stuff. I'm open-minded, but I'm also the person who Googles scientific explanation after every creepy video. Still, I have this big wooden sign by my front door that says, "Absolutely no spirit boards allowed." I host game nights all the time. Cards, trivia, ridiculous party games. But if someone ever showed up with a Ouija board, I'd walk them right back to the elevator. I always joke that I don't want to accidentally open a portal while people are still eating nachos. Anyway, my mom's been a widow for a long time now. My dad, Robert, passed away when I was in my 20s. We talk about him a lot, but we don't usually talk about ghosts. So we're sitting in her kitchen one rainy Saturday, drinking tea, and she glances at the "No Spirit Boards" sign I'd brought over as a joke to show her. She stares at it for a second longer than normal, and then goes, "You know, there's a reason I don't like those things either." And that's when she tells me this story she'd never told me before. She says it was the late 1970s, when she was about 16. She grew up in a small town, the kind where everybody knows which kid snuck a cigarette behind the grocery store. One night, she and 3 of her friends, Marcy, Lou, and Tina, were hanging out in Marcy's basement. You know the setup already. Wood-paneled walls, that old couch that eats your keys, one dim lamp in the corner. Marcy had found a spirit board at a thrift shop, one of those with the alphabet printed in this overly dramatic Gothic font, and a little heart-shaped planchette. My mom said she wasn't really into it, but she was a teenager, bored, and everyone else was insisting. So they turned off most of the lights, left the lamp on low, and sat in a circle on the carpet. They started with stupid questions like, "Is anyone here with us? Are you a boy or a girl?" And at first, nothing happened. The planchette just sat there, stubborn and still. They were giggling, making fun of it. Then, my mom says, the room got weirdly quiet. You know that moment when everyone stops talking at once, and the silence feels heavier than it should? Like the air is listening too? That. They all put their fingertips back on the planchette, and Marcy goes, "Okay, seriously this time. Who are we going to marry?" Now, remember, they're 16. This is basically the most important question they could think of. My mom swears to me, swears, that they all agreed not to move the planchette. And she believed them. She'd known these girls her whole life. First up was Marcy. The planchette slid to the letters D-A-V-E. Everyone laughed because there was a Dave in their class. But my mom said he barely knew Marcy existed. It felt like the board was just picking random names. Then it was Lou's turn. The planchette moved again. C-A-R-L-O-S. Lou apparently turned bright red. She had a huge crush on a guy named Carlos who worked at the local music store. Nobody else knew about that crush yet. Then it was Tina's turn. The board spelled J-E-R-R-Y. Tina groaned because Jerry was this awkward, lanky kid in their math class who always wore the same windbreaker. She insisted there was no way she was marrying that guy. Finally, it was my mom's turn. She told me, in that kitchen, that even just remembering this moment made the hair on her arm stand up. She put her fingers back on the planchette, and it started to move. Slow at first, then more confidently. It spelled R-O-M-A-N. Now here's the important part. At that time, she didn't know any Roberts her age. There was a Mr. Roberts, a cranky science teacher at the high school, but no teenage Robert in her world. They all sat there, half laughing, half freaked out. Then someone decided they'd had enough. They shoved the board back in its box, turned the lights on, and tried to pretend it was no big deal. And in their rush, this is the detail that stuck with me. They forgot to say goodbye. If you've ever used a spirit board, you know that's the one rule even skeptics tend to follow. You always move the planchette to goodbye at the end. Close the session. Shut the door. They didn't. Life went on. They went back to school, talked about homework and crushes and music. But the weirdness started almost immediately. At first it was little things. My mom would wake up in the middle of the night, convinced someone had whispered her name directly into her ear. She'd sit up, heart racing, but her room would be empty and still. The radio in the kitchen would flip stations by itself, always landing on static for a second before settling on some old love song. A framed photo would be slightly crooked no matter how many times she straightened it. The family dog would stand in the hallway and growl at a corner of the living room where absolutely nothing was. She figured it was just her imagination until she started hearing similar stories from the other girls. Marcy's bedroom door would slowly open on its own, even when it was locked. Lou swore she heard tapping on her window at night from the second floor. Tina kept misplacing her keys and finding them in the same spot, on top of her dresser, balanced right on the edge, like someone had placed them there. None of it was big enough to prove anything. No flying furniture, no demons, just unsettling, persistent oddness. And then the years started to roll by. Here's the part that made me put my tea down and just stare at my mom. Every single one of those predictions, they came true. Marcy married a guy named Dave she met in college. Lou ended up with Carlos, the music store guy, years later, completely by chance in a different city. Tina, she moved away, swore off that hometown forever, and then reconnected on social media with our old awkward friend Jerry, who, according to my mom, had become surprisingly charming. They got married in their 30s. And my mom? She moved to a new town after high school, got a job at a little bookstore. And one day this guy walked in asking for a book on photography. His name tag read, Robert. She said when she saw his name, her stomach dropped. Not in a bad way, just in a, this is familiar and I don't know why way. She didn't remember the board right away. That came later, after they were dating, when she was lying in bed one night and the name from that teenage seance just popped into her mind like a song she hadn't heard in years. That Robert became my dad. And no, before you ask, she never told him the story about the board while he was alive. She said she was scared it would make their whole relationship feel cursed or scripted, like they never really had a choice. I asked her, so, do you think the board predicted it? Or do you think you just noticed those names because of that night? She shrugged and said, I've heard the explanations. The little unconscious movements, the ideomotor effect, all of that. Maybe our hands moved the planchette. Maybe our minds filled in the blanks. But that doesn't explain why the names stuck. Why they kept showing up, And it definitely doesn't explain why, for years afterward, I felt like someone was standing just over my shoulder whenever I was alone. She laughed when she said it, but it wasn't a funny laugh. It was that soft, tired laugh people do when they've made some kind of uneasy peace with something they can't prove. The strange little things, she said, tapered off after they all graduated and drifted apart. It was like whatever they'd nudged awake finally lost interest. Or maybe, she said, the board never had any power at all. Maybe the real power was their own belief, humming along beneath everything, quietly shaping the choices they made. We sat there for a moment, just listening to the rain hit the kitchen window. I thought about my "no spirit boards" sign, my insistence that I don't really believe in any of this. And then my mom looked at me and said, "You don't have to believe it." But I lived it. And I'm telling you, the night we forgot to say goodbye was the night things stopped feeling entirely like they were just ours anymore. So that's why, at my place, it's board games only. Dice, cards, charades, sure. Laughing, yelling, snacks everywhere, absolutely. But if you ever come over to one of my game nights and you're thinking about slipping a spirit board out of your bag, just look at the sign. And remember my mom, 16 years old in that basement, fingers on the planchette, asking a question that followed her for the rest of her life. The next day, school, homework, normal life. Then comes the day after that. It's a Sunday afternoon. My parents are out running errands, my brother's at a friend's, and it's just me and my dog, Milo, this little mutt who usually doesn't have a care in the world. We're on the couch in the living room, watching TV. There's a floor lamp next to us, the kind with that little metal switch you click with your fingers. Out of nowhere, the lamp just turns on. Click, light. I frown, look at it, and before I can even react, click, off. Click, on. Click, off. Like someone is standing right there, playing with the switch. I figure, okay, maybe it's a short or something. I lean over, unplug the lamp from the wall. And that's when I swear to you, the little metal switch starts clicking by itself. Click, 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 click. No power, completely unplugged. And that switch is just flicking up and down on its own. Milo loses it. He jumps off the couch, starts barking at the lamp, hackles up. I grab him. I'm shaking. My heart is pounding, and I bolt upstairs, slam my bedroom door, and lock it. When my parents get home, I tell them everything. They kind of shrug it off. Old house, weird wiring, maybe air pressure. You're watching too many scary movies. All the classic parent lines. But after that, things start to stack up. Over the next couple of months, I start hearing these creaks on the wooden stairs when I'm home alone. At first I'm like, okay, it's an old house, it settles, whatever. But after a while, I notice there's a pattern to it. It's not random creaking, it's steps. Step, 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 pause, step, step, and always when I'm alone. One afternoon, I come home from school. I'm the last one to leave in the morning and the first one back, so the house should be exactly how I left it. I go into my room, and I stop dead in the doorway. I used to keep a row of stuffed animals on a shelf above my bed. That morning, they're all lined up, squished together like usual. Now, every single one of them is sitting in the middle of my floor, perfectly arranged in a straight line, all facing the doorway, facing me. The shelf is a good 10 feet away from where they're sitting. No one else is home. My door had been shut. I just stand there in the hallway like, nope, number, absolutely not. I scoop them up, throw them back on the shelf, and convince myself my brother somehow broke in just to mess with me, even though there's no sign of that, and it doesn't really make sense. But you know, your brain will do mental gymnastics to avoid ghost stuff. Then comes my birthday. My friend's mom is super crafty, and she makes me this giant string light curtain as a surprise. Like those aesthetic fairy lights you hang in front of a door. She weaves in ribbons and little paper stars, tapes and hooks everything, secures it so well it's practically part of the house. I decide to hang it in front of the tiny attic door inside my closet. It felt cute at the time. In hindsight, I just decorated the entrance to my personal horror movie. A couple of weeks go by. One night, it's after 2 a.m., dark, quiet, and I wake up abruptly. No sound, no nightmare that I remember, just that feeling like something yanked me out of sleep. I'm lying on my side, facing the wall. My room is mostly dark, except for this faint glow from the street light coming through the blinds. And then I hear it. This soft pop. Pop, pop. Like something tiny is snapping. I roll over just in time to see the entire string light curtain in my closet explode apart. The ribbons break free. The lights drop one by one, and these little paper stars and wires fling out into the room, like someone grabbed it from inside and ripped it toward them. I freeze. I don't scream. I don't move. I just watch as strands of lights fall and scatter across my floor. One of the hooks snaps off and hits the wall near my bed. And behind all that, the tiny attic door is standing open. I shut my eyes, pulled the blanket over my head like I was 5 years old again, and I did not move until I saw sunlight. In the morning, my room looks like a storm hit it. Lights and ribbons everywhere. Little paper stars torn and crumpled. The attic door is still open. I completely lose it. I tell my parents everything. Again. They decide my brother must have done it, but he swears he didn't. And also, my bedroom door had been locked that night. Now I'm really freaked out, but I'm still trying to live my life, go to school, be a normal teenager. Then it's this big religious holiday. My family is Eastern Orthodox, so our services are long and very intense, chanting in Old Slavic, incense everywhere. Candles, icons, holy water. We're standing right up front because my mom likes to be early for everything. The priest starts going down the rows with this branch bundle soaked in holy water, sprinkling everybody, and he's swinging this censer with thick, sweet smoke coming out. As he's getting closer to us, I start feeling weird, kind of dizzy. Kind of like my chest is tight. I tell my mom, I don't feel good. She whispers, we're almost done, just hold on. The priest steps in front of our row. He sprinkles my mom, then me, then Mark. The incense smell hits me full on. I look at my stepdad and, without even thinking, I say, I'm sorry. And then everything goes black. I drop. Front row. Packed church. hard floor. Next thing I know, I'm outside on the church steps, my mom lightly slapping my face, people fanning me, someone pressing a bottle of water into my hand. I'm shaking. I have no idea what just happened, and in my head, there's only one thought. Something in that house does not like this. After that, my mom actually listens to me. I tell her everything again. The lamp, the stairs, the toys, the lights, the attic door. I tell her about Jess and Dylan and the plaque. So we call the priest and ask him to come bless the house. A week or so later, he shows up in his robes, carrying incense, holy water, and a small bottle of oil. Windows open, candles lit. He walks room to room, praying softly in Slavic. He puts a dab of oil above every doorway, tucks tiny paper icons into the frames, sprinkles holy water along the baseboards, lets the incense smoke drift into the corners. When we get to my room, he pauses, just for a second. He doesn't say anything, but he looks at that attic door a little longer than he looks at anything else. Then he makes the sign of the cross, sprinkles extra holy water around the closet, and quietly moves on. After that, everything stops. No more footsteps on the stairs when I'm alone. No more lamps turning on. No more toys moving. No more late-night exploding decorations. Milo goes back to sleeping in my room, totally unbothered. The house feels lighter, quieter in a good way. Not that heavy silence that hums with, "You're not alone." Life moves on. I grow up. We stay in that house for years, and as far as I know, nothing else happens. And honestly, I kind of forget about the plaque. Dylan's den. It just sort of disappears from my dresser one day, and I assume someone packed it away or tossed it. Fast forward, like 10 years. I'm visiting my parents, sitting at the kitchen table, and my stepdad comes downstairs from the attic, covered in dust, shaking his head, laughing. He goes, "You are not going to believe what I just found." He holds up this old wooden plaque, all chipped on the edges. Dylan's den. I hadn't seen it in years. I honestly thought I'd lost it or accidentally broken it and blocked it out. Mark says, "It was wedged behind a beam up there, like someone slid it in and forgot about it." I never put it up there. Nobody remembers moving it. It just migrated back into the attic on its own. We just kind of look at each other and laugh it off, like, "Ha ha, guess Dylan wanted his sign back." But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, maybe that blessing worked. Maybe he finally got whatever peace he needed. Maybe the house isn't his anymore. And maybe, just maybe, the attic door staying closed all these years is his way of saying, "We're good now." So, every time October rolls around and people start putting up their Halloween decorations, there's this one memory that just grabs me by the throat a little. This happened about 13 years ago. I think it was October 5th, 2011, around 9:30 at night. It was one of those damp, chilly nights. No rain at that exact moment, but the streets were still wet, and there was this low fog hanging under the streetlights. You could see lightning way off in the distance, but it was quiet where we were. My mom's friend Lena, who lived in a subdivision a few minutes from us, posted on Facebook that her cat had gotten out and hadn't come home. He was this chunky orange tabby named Pumpkin, and my mom has a soft spot for any animal in distress, so of course we volunteered. So it's me, my mom, and my younger brother Jamie, piling into the car to go help look. We're driving slowly around Lena's subdivision, Maple Ridge. Windows cracked a bit so we can listen for meowing, calling, "Pumpkin, here, kitty kitty." Like that's going to magically make him appear. It's really dark. Most of the houses have their porch lights off already, and the only real light is from those yellowy street lamps and the occasional flicker of someone's TV through a window. My mom has the headlights on bright. I'm leaning forward in the passenger seat scanning the yards, and Jamie's craning his neck to see down driveways. We're rolling down this one long, straight street. No cars parked along it. No people out. Just us. We're on the right side of the road, going maybe 15 miles an hour. And then, on the left side of the road, she is just there. I don't remember seeing her come from a driveway or around a corner. 1 second the road is empty. The next second there's this little girl in the other lane. She looked about 6 or 7. Light skin, dark hair that was kind of messy, like it hadn't been brushed after a bath. She was wearing what looked like a lavender hoodie and shorts. Something you'd expect a kid to wear during the day, not late at night. And she was in a wheelchair. Not a big medical-looking one, but a small chair, low to the ground. Her legs, or what was left of them, ended just above the knee, little stumps covered in socks. She was using her hands on the wheels, slowly rolling herself straight down the middle of the lane, like that was the most normal thing in the world. Here's what really got me. Her posture was rigid, completely straight, almost unnaturally so. She never turned her head. She didn't look at our car, didn't flinch at the headlights, didn't squint or lift a hand to shield her eyes when my mom's high beams hit her dead on. She just stared, straight ahead. We were going in opposite directions, so the actual passing moment was maybe 2 or 3 seconds. But those seconds felt stretched, like we drove through a bubble of silence. Nobody said anything as we passed her. We all just absorbed it. We got maybe a house or 2 past her before my brain finally caught up and went, "Wait, what?" At the exact same time, my mom goes, very quietly, "Did you guys just see that?" Jamie and I both kind of talk over each other. The girl? In the wheelchair? With no legs? And as soon as we all confirm we actually saw the same thing, my mom snaps into action and whips the car around in a quick U-turn. We're all suddenly wide awake, hearts pounding, scanning the road like crazy. We drive back down that same stretch of street, slowly, like really slowly. She's gone. No little girl, no wheelchair, no movement on the sidewalks, no open garage doors, nothing. It's not like there were a lot of side streets for her to turn down either. It was a long, mostly straight run. For her to disappear in those few seconds would have meant turning off somewhere and getting out of sight very fast, which seems unlikely, given the wheelchair and the way she was moving. My mom pulls over and we just sit there for a minute, all of us staring at the empty road. There's that weird, heavy feeling in the car, like everyone is trying to decide if they're going to be the one to say, "Ghost," out loud. Nobody does. Instead, my mom finally goes, "Well, okay. That was strange. Let's, keep looking for Pumpkin, I guess." So we do. We drive around the subdivision for another hour, calling for the cat, looking down every side street, every cul-de-sac. We don't see the girl again. We don't see anyone else, actually. It feels like the whole neighborhood is asleep. Eventually, we hear this faint, pitiful yowling near one of the houses at the very back of the subdivision. We follow the sound and find Pumpkin wedged under a wooden porch, screaming at another neighborhood cat like they're in some kind of dramatic soap opera. Jamie coaxes him out, we get him in the car, and we head back to Lena's place. When we hand Pumpkin over, my mom kind of laughs and goes, "You're not going to believe what we just saw while we were looking for him." So we tell her the whole story. The street, the time, the little girl, the wheelchair, how she vanished when we turned around. Lena listens, frowning a little, and then says, "I've lived here for 8 years. I've never seen any little girl in a wheelchair. There isn't anyone like that around here that I know of." And that just makes the whole thing creepier. Life moves on, but I never forget that night. It becomes one of those stories I pull out sometimes, usually around Halloween. Always with that same unsettled feeling in my chest. Fast forward to just a few days ago. I don't know what made me think of it so strongly again. Maybe the decorations going up. Maybe just my brain connecting dates. But I decided to post about it on my town's community Facebook page. I wrote the whole encounter out and then asked if anyone who lived in Maple Ridge back then remembered a little girl in a wheelchair who might have lived on that particular street about 13 years ago. So far, nothing. A bunch of people have commented things like, "I've been here 20 years, never seen anyone like that." Or, "I walk my dog down that road all the time, don't recall any family with a child in a wheelchair." Some people shared their own weird stories, but nobody could say, "Oh yeah, that was so-and-so's daughter." And that's what bothers me. Because if she was real, a 7-year-old girl in a wheelchair, who lets their kid roll down the middle of the street alone at almost 10 at night, on a dark, wet road, no reflective gear, no adult in sight? I even went digging through old local news archives online, seeing if there were any stories about a missing girl or an accident involving a child with a disability in our area. Nothing. Our town is small. If something like that had happened, it would have been all over the place. People still talk about minor fender benders from years ago like they're legend, but there's nothing about her. So I'm stuck with this memory. Me, my mom, my brother. All three of us absolutely certain we saw the same little girl in the same spot, doing something that makes no sense and no explanation. And now, To make it even eerier, they've started a bunch of new construction near that street, tearing up old lots, digging foundations, moving dirt around. Every time I drive past, I catch myself wondering if something's going to turn up. Some old story, some piece of evidence, something that explains where she came from, or where she went. For now, though, it's just this moment, frozen in my mind. The wet road, the fog in the headlights, and that tiny figure rolling steadily forward, eyes fixed straight ahead. Like we were the ones who didn't belong there, not her. I think I'll be holding my breath about that night for a long time. So, before I get into this, I need to say something up front. I don't really know much about Arabic magic or spiritual practices. I've heard stories here and there, like everyone does, but I never took the time to really study them or think too deeply about it. What I have always had, though, is this sensitivity to the other side, I guess. I get these really vivid premonition dreams, and they've come true often enough that I don't just brush them off anymore. For the past 3 years, my grandmother, let's call her Noura, has been having awful night terrors. There's no medical explanation. We've taken her to doctors, run tests, checked everything. She never had anything like this when she was younger. She tells us that, when she does remember, her nightmares are full of shadowy figures chasing her, grabbing her, crowding around her. But most of them, she doesn't remember at all. She doesn't realize how often she wails or screams in her sleep. I do, though, because I share a room with her. Honestly, I barely sleep. One night, not that long ago, she had one of the worst episodes I've seen. She let out this horrible scream, like a real, from-the-gut scream, and her whole body was shaking. I kept calling her name, shaking her shoulder, trying to pull her back. It took a while, longer than usual. When she finally woke up properly, she clutched my hand and said, very seriously, that she felt like she could have died if I hadn't brought her out of it. And the way she said it didn't feel dramatic. It felt like she really believed it. At that point, a relative of ours, my cousin, Sarah, reached out to a spiritual healer, almost like an exorcist. He's kind of known in our community, not some random person. He doesn't take money, and he only uses religious texts and recitations to try to help people. That part mattered to us. It made it easier to trust him. After he did whatever assessments he does, he told us that there had been some kind of malicious magic done on my grandmother decades ago. Back in the late 70s, he said. He described it as something written on parchment that had started to disintegrate over time. Because of that, according to him, the entities attached to it didn't really remember what they were supposed to be doing. So instead of carrying out whatever the original intent was, they had kind of devolved into teasing and tormenting her. I didn't know what to do with that information at first. Part of me was skeptical, but the truth is, we had exhausted everything else. No medical answers, no psychological explanation that fit. This was our last resort. He gave my grandmother a talisman to keep near her, something to bring her some relief. But he was very clear, it wasn't a cure. He said the thing done to her was old and deeply rooted. This is still ongoing, by the way. Nothing is neatly wrapped up. Right now, though, Noura is visiting one of my aunts in another city, so I share the room only with my younger brother, Yusuf. I'm a light sleeper, and I wear one of those thick, padded eye masks because any bit of light wakes me up. Sound too, honestly. Any small noise and I'm awake. Early this morning, just before dawn, I heard the sound of someone sitting down on my grandmother's bed. You know that distinct shift of the mattress and the creak of the frame? It was exactly that. Right after that, I heard soft sniffling, the kind that comes with quiet crying. It sounded like someone was sitting there, hunched over, trying not to sob out loud. My first thought was, why would anyone in my family come into my room, sit on that bed, and cry this early in the morning? I lay there completely still, listening. The sniffling kept going, wet breaths, small, shaky inhales. It sounded real. Then something clicked in my head. The door had never opened. Our door has one of those dust stoppers attached to the bottom, and it drags loudly along the floor whenever someone opens it. You can't miss it. If the door moves, you hear it. But there had been no sound. No dragging, no click of the handle. Nothing. That realization hit me hard. And I have to be honest, that's when I got scared. I didn't take off my eye mask. I didn't sit up. I just froze. My heart was pounding, and every part of me wanted to peek and see who or what was sitting there. But at the same time, I had this heavy, instinctive feeling that I did not want to see its face. So I did what I usually do when something like this happens. I pretended to ignore it and tried to go back to sleep. This isn't my first haunting, unfortunately, but it is the first time something like this has happened in this particular room. On top of that, I've had two very specific nightmares that I can't shake. In both of them, I saw something pretending to be my grandmother. It looked like her at first glance. Her height, her walk, even her voice. But in the dream, it always felt wrong, like someone was wearing her as a costume. The best way I can describe it is that uncanny valley feeling, where everything is almost right, but just slightly off in a way your brain can't ignore. In the first dream, Grandma Noura was moving around the house, knocking things over, causing little bits of chaos, misplacing items, breaking small objects, then looking at me with this almost playful, mocking smile. In the second dream, I remember sitting at the edge of my bed while she stood in the doorway, just watching me. Same face, same clothes, but her expression didn't match her eyes. Her eyes looked empty, like someone was looking out through them. And here's the part that really shook me. My mother, let's call her Layla, told me about a dream she had recently. She said she saw her own mother doing strange things, out of character, causing mischief, making messes, moving silently from room to room with this eerie calmness. Layla said that in her dream, too, it felt like something was inside her mother, not actually her. We didn't coordinate these dreams. She told me about hers, and when I told her mine, we just kind of stared at each other for a moment. It felt too similar to be brushed off. And it's not just us. Different members of the family have mentioned feeling a presence in our drawing room. That room has always had a strange energy, honestly. People say they feel like someone is standing just behind them when they sit there alone. We've all, at different times, heard phantom sounds. Like someone is working in the kitchen, or moving things in the hallway, or walking up and down the house. You hear a plate clink, or a chair scrape lightly, or footsteps. You go to check, expecting to find someone there, and the room is empty. No one. Nothing moved. Everyone else is in their own rooms, or asleep, or out. So that's where we are right now. My grandmother with unexplained night terrors and a history of something dark supposedly done to her decades ago. A spiritual healer who insists there's old magic involved. Me, hearing someone sit on her empty bed and cry, without the door ever opening. Dreams of something wearing her face like a mask. Mine and my mother's. And a house where people keep hearing and feeling things that shouldn't be there. I don't have a neat conclusion for you. I'm still living in the middle of this. But if you've ever wondered how it feels when the unseen doesn't stay so unseen, it feels like this.